I wanted to share with you a couple of perspectives. In my work as a naturopath, when I first started studying, the thing I wanted to do most was work with the medical system. While I was studying, my dream kind of idea was to actually get a job in a hospital. And so I'm very lucky now to be working with Jenna in the same clinic. Because in many ways, what we do is not so different. We're actually very complementary. They used to call naturopaths alternative. They now call us complementary or complementary medicine practitioners. I actually see that what Jenna and I are very, very complementary. We actually learn about what each other does. We don't necessarily do the same things, but we know about what each other does. And so we can refer to each other because we both respect what each other does. We do some things that are similar and we do some things that are slightly different, but they actually complement each other incredibly well. And that brings about a better outcome for our patients on all levels. And yes, I just consider it a real joy and a privilege to be able to work that way. It's lovely. And I'd really like to be able to take that further into the hospital system at some point in the future. Part of the whole process of the spiritual development process, in that process is really, really important. No, let me go back. Some of the principles that Jenna and I work with that are very similar are taking responsibility for your health, that we both talk about preventative medicine, and the whole term doctor comes from docere, which means to teach about health, to take responsibility for your health, and to really progress along the path of your own spiritual development and enlightenment. We need to take responsibility for our own health, our body. The physical body is as important as the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual bodies. They all work together. And if we have blockages in one area of one of the bodies, the others don't work and relate so well together. So it's an important part of the process to really care for the physical body and to feed it good, clean, healthy food, drink the right kind of fluids, clean, fresh water, and eat food that's of a good quality vibration, not highly processed food, but as close as natural as possible, and to eat a really balanced diet so that we get a real complement of the minerals and vitamins that we need so that our nervous system functions, so that all of our organ systems work effectively, so that we clean our own internal wastes. You know, the body generates an incredible amount of waste. And so we have a whole bunch of filter systems that clean that waste out of our body. So it's important that all of our filters are working effectively. Our kidneys, our liver, the gut, the lungs, even the skin is a good filter organ. And so while we're processing, actually just while we're engaging with life, we're creating toxins that need to be cleaned and released, regardless of what we ingest. Some of the things that we ingest may be toxic. We need to have our filters operating effectively to clean that out of our system so that our body's not bogged down with chemicals that create neurotoxic reactions. A lot of the food that we eat has flavour enhancers, chemicals, preservatives in them, and these are excitotoxins that at gut level create reactions right through the body and through the nervous system that keep operating long after we've stopped ingesting that particular food. So it can really interfere with the functioning of how our body operates. So educating ourselves about what we're actually putting into our body, reading what's on packets so that we minimise the chemical input is an important part of taking responsibility for our own health. What do naturopaths do? Naturopaths sit down with their clients, patients really, I guess, and engage in a conversation with them to understand what their health issues are. Naturopaths work on several main principles. One of the principles is to remove obstacles to cure, to do what it takes to enliven the body's own vital force. That nature has, the body has its own ability to heal and cure itself if we get out of the way. So part of the role of a naturopath is to find out what people are doing that's getting in the way of health, and then formulate a way to work with the person to help bring about health, whether that be physical things, emotional patterns, mental patterns. Just have a whole look at a big holistic picture. The whole Cosmosis process works brilliantly with naturopathy because so many physical ailments have emotional, mental components to them. And so you can work with a patient gradually, gently, to bring them to an awareness of those issues, and at the same time help them reduce their judgments around themselves or around the issues that they're working with. Even run the Cosmosis process while you're working with them, that helps to create a space of acceptance and non-judgment, that where they begin to see and feel themselves differently and see and feel different potentials for themselves, so that change can take place. An important role of a naturopath is to educate, so that people know what it is that they can do for themselves to create health, basically. So we might use herbs, we might use minerals, vitamins, flower essences. A big component of what we do is with diet, and also understanding lifestyle issues to stop doing things that cause you to be not healthy, and come to a bigger understanding of what it is that you're doing with yourself and why you're doing it with yourself, to create a more loving, accepting space of yourself to become healthy. The quality of empathy is something anyone can learn. You know, we all have the ability to learn empathy. And so as we work through clearing our own emotional baggage, fear-based patterns, and learn to kind of embrace more of a sense of oneness and unity, empathy becomes more a part of just naturally a way of being. And the quality of empathy is a wonderful I was going to say tool, but it's not really a tool. The experience of empathy with a patient helps to really understand where a patient is, helps to really just be with a patient in their experience, what they're experiencing, and maybe kind of have a sense of what they're experiencing that maybe they're not quite so sure of themselves, and so to be able to provide reflective feedback for that, so that they can kind of expand a little further or step a little further than where they currently are at the time. And just really, when someone's ill, not well, they have an illness of some sort and they haven't been well for a long period of time, to be with someone who just holds a space with them and goes, ah, I get it. Just really being present with them in that space can help precipitate a whole healing process in itself. Because they may have been to a bunch of other places where where they are at hasn't been acknowledged, and maybe they haven't even acknowledged where they're at within themselves. And so working with empathy with patients helps to really help them just be with themselves. Jenny asked, she's mentioned that there was a different quality that we bring to our practice, that it's not just coming from the head and using vitamins and minerals. And it's a really interesting question that you raise, because the education of naturopathy has changed over some time in an attempt to become more conventionally accepted. Naturopathy has moved down the path of more evidence-based practice. And in that process, it's, in my opinion, and it's just not only my opinion, in that process it's lost some of the heart. In fact, some colleges actually started to drop the principles of naturopathy as they were teaching it, in an attempt to be more conventionally accepted in the Western mode, to be evidence-based. I think that's unfortunate, and I don't think that will continue as a process. So through the Insight Foundation and the Cosmosis Mentoring Centre and the School of Naturopathy that we run, we bring the heart back into the practice as well. That more heart, spirit, comes back into the practice. So the question, what I do, it's an interesting one because I don't even think about it. What I do, I feel like to be a whole being while you're with someone assists them to be a whole being as well. And the processes that I've learnt and engaged with through the Cosmosis Mentoring Centre have helped me to clear a lot of my own biases, judgments, fear-based patterns, helped to clear a lot of old paradigms that held me in a more contracted space. That's a continuous ongoing process, but the tools that the Cosmosis process offers are amazing gifts to be able to kind of develop and open up all our own innate potentials. So, I feel like it's helped me to become a better practitioner on all kinds of levels that aren't just about technically knowing what to do with a patient, but more really engaging with that person on a very, very deep level, call it spiritual, but just to really be with the patient, to come to understanding what is a healing space for them. And I really credit kind of like the Cosmosis process for a lot for that.
And you teach that, don't you?
Yes, that's a big part of what we teach in our school. Good naturopathy really works with developing a treatment program or a treatment protocol that's really unique to each individual. And so two people might arrive with presenting with the same condition, but in naturopathy you wouldn't give them the same formula because we tend to look a little bit more deeply at what's going on for them with all parts of their body, their nervous system, their heart, their mind, their life, their outside stresses. Each person is a unique individual and comes with a unique set of circumstances, and so we tailor our formulas based on all of that they present with. So developing sort of empathy and receptivity helps to engage with that a little more fully. When someone takes responsibility for their life and their health, their healing process is going to be exponentially accelerated. So it's an important thing. Yeah, it's essential. All of the other things, the herbs, the nutritional supplements, diet changes, all of that helps. But that's not going to help so much if the person doesn't take responsibility for their life and their own changes. So it's an essential ingredient. They're not mutually exclusive. I think it's essential for all of us to know the self. From a health perspective, it helps to... many people arrive with... I know from my own experience, with chronic fatigue syndrome, that became a big wake-up call to me to get to know myself a little bit more deeply. And so different people's health conditions can be an opportunity to come to know yourself more deeply and get to see what it is that you're doing that maybe isn't in alignment with your highest purpose, or uncover patterns and things that you've been running that aren't harmonious to health, that are not of ease but are of dis-ease. So yes, knowing thyself is an important part of creating health. Thank you. Lana asked about the importance of a good diet. I think a good diet is essential to health, and in my early stages in naturopathy I didn't feel quite so confident about telling people or informing people about what I thought they should do in their life, and would just give them supplements, and it just didn't work. It's essential to if your diet is not a healthy diet giving you a broad range of nutrients, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to make a lot of difference. So a good diet is foundational to good health, absolutely. You can supplement that with other things if there's deficiencies and things missing, or if a person's body needs a bit of a boost in a particular direction for a while. We live in an environment where we are exposed to more oxidative stress, so a diet or supplements in higher levels of antioxidants is a useful thing to help counter that oxidative stress in the body. Yeah. I'll speak generally rather than too specifically, but Jenna and I will often see the same patients and we'll refer patients to each other. As I said before, we both respect what each other does, and we do some things that are similar and some things that are slightly different. And so we send the patient into an area where her specialty is or my specialty is. In some cases, drugs are required, and I will recommend that a patient go and get drugs if that's required, if I believe that's necessary. Jenna's wonderful at formulating some lifestyle protocols, as well as brilliant with the testing procedures and coming to understandings with the body that I don't have access to or I don't do. I do slightly different procedures, so we just balance each other out. Jackie asked, why did I become a naturopath, and what is my highest ideal for the naturopathic industry? I became a naturopath because I had a love of herbs, actually. It was my love of herbs, and I'd kind of, it was travelling through Asia and spending some time with the medicine man up on the Laos border in Thailand, who showed me a holistic approach where people came to his front porch and he talked to them about their life, about everything about their life, so he understood them and what was going on for them. And then he'd do a little process to help clear some of the stuck. It was an animistic tradition, the village. And then a bunch of herbs were provided with some other advice to go home with. And I just kind of looked at that and kind of felt, here's a really holistic approach that I wouldn't mind kind of applying in other ways, but in a more Western model. And herbal medicine had always been a great love, and so naturopathy just seemed like a direction to go in naturally. What I see for naturopathy, what I hope for naturopathy, is to see it integrated more with, so the polarities between the current biomedical Western model and alternative medicine, that there isn't a polarity, that the two actually work together in a symbiotic process, because each is highly valuable. I also hope and aspire to work through the naturopathic profession so that the principles of Cosmosis become part of the teaching of naturopathy, so that naturopaths become emotionally, psychologically clear, because they're not really taught much about that. It's just touched on through the training, but in terms of really engaging with those processes, it's not done. And so much of the healing interaction is about engaging with the patient fully and completely. And if you don't know yourself, you can't engage with the patient fully and completely. You can't bring yourself to there, because you've got all the no-go zones within yourself. So they don't come into the consultation with the practitioner. So if you can bring all of yourself into the consultation with the practitioner, you can hold a space for them where they get to sense a resonance of how they can be more of themselves as well. And so all kinds of wonderful things can happen in those spaces that bring about change that maybe you wouldn't have even conceived of, where the person lets go of all kinds of ways of doing things and patterns and stuff that kind of just catalyzes out of the ethers almost. So yeah, working with practitioners to facilitate that process, bring Cosmosis into the training, which is what the school is about. The question was, what kind of, as the resident naturopath, what kind of support can I offer students going through the different programs? I can offer lots of support. I can offer support in all kinds of ways. I feel like the detoxification process is a really, really important process, because in many ways the process is a detoxification process on an emotional, psychological level as well. And so if you facilitate that on a physical level, it helps clear toxins out of the body, because it's just a representation, a physical manifestation of what's going on other levels of the being as well. Also, through the process, you can experience all kinds of aches and pains through acidic buildup, through mineral deficiencies can cause all kinds of nervous system inefficiencies, I suppose. So through naturopathy, what we can do is help improve the diet, improve the physical functioning of the body. What it does brilliantly is restructure the body physically in areas that are breaking down. Work out what's missing, fill in the gaps so that the body can actually rebuild itself more effectively. Then whatever process you're going through herbs, minerals, diet change, advice, help facilitate that on a physical level, so that on an emotional, psychological, spiritual level that becomes a more fluid process, happens more easily. Ascension stress. As we go through the spiritual development process, our bodies go through a whole lot of strains and stresses that they wouldn't normally go through otherwise. The body releases all kinds of toxins at the same time, fear being one of those toxins, and that can impact on the body, interfere with its functioning. And just generally, there are a whole range of other nutrients that the body's required as it's rebuilding and it's restructuring itself. So making sure that all our filters are working properly is a really important part of that process. Just as we're clearing fear, we want to clear our own bodily wastes. And then as the body builds and restructures itself, there are a whole range of nutrients that help restructure the body more effectively. Essential fatty acids, minerals, amino acids, to have them at hand at the time that you're actually going through your own rebuilding process helps your body kind of just restructure more effectively. Simon's question was about rebalancing hormones and what can naturopathy do there. Yeah, herbs are a wonderful way to help rebalance hormonal imbalances. And the hormonal system in the body has lots and lots of biofeedback loops, so that as you develop one hormonal imbalance, you can begin to develop other hormonal imbalances. And so that if you only address the last hormonal imbalance, you're not really addressing what maybe created what was the first one in the first place. And stress and all kinds of lifestyle factors start to create hormonal imbalances as well. So yeah, herbs, nutritional substances can help redress those balances. There's a class of herbs called adaptogens that work brilliantly, and they confound science, because in a body that's underfunctioning, it has the ability to stimulate that production of that hormone, and in a body that's overstimulated, it can down-regulate the production of those hormones. So herbal medicine has some lovely, they call them amphoteric possibilities, so that it can help bring a body back into balance. And it's a loose term, but it works.